Has it ever happened to you that you know everything, you're very well prepared, and you just don't score well on your exam? And did you know that having mastery over your content and scoring well in your exams are two different things? So in today's video, we're going to talk about those specific things that you need to do in order to write high scoring answers. So let's get going. Happy watching! Hey, this is Chetna and you're watching ChetChat. And for today's video, I met with principals and examiners and also analyzed past papers of toppers over several years. So in the video, we're going to cover two things. One is exam to-dos. What are those things you need to do as soon as you get into that examination hall? And two, paper presentation strategies. Specific tips for you to present your science, social studies, math, English or any other paper. Let's begin with the exam to-dos, and the first is the timing. As soon as you get your paper, divide the total time between each question, leaving 15 minutes at the end for revision. Now perhaps you have 10 short answer type questions and you want to put 40 marks for them, and perhaps you have 3 to 5 long answer type questions for about 5 marks or 10 marks, and you want to keep an hour or hour and a half for that. Now you could perhaps do this even before. When you're doing your practice papers for revision, you can plan out the timings, and as soon as you go into the hall, you write the timings down next to each question. You know, sometimes we spend so much time writing the first few short answers so beautifully and neatly, and by the time we reach the last 10-mark answer, we're rushing through it and missing out on marks over there. So wear a wristwatch, don't depend on the wall clock, and if your time is running out, leave the question and move forward. The second exam to do is to read the question twice. And also notice the command word at the beginning of every question and read the entire sentence twice, because distinguish is different from list and describe is different from give advantages of. Now sometimes we are in this excitement and we read the first few words of the question and we jump right into answering it because we've seen a familiar question before. This is a trap. Be very careful. And the third exam to do is for CBSE and ICSE students. If you get a question in your paper that you think is out of your syllabus, please attempt it. It has happened in the past that the examiners discovered that the question was out of syllabus and they decided to give marks to the student who attempted it, irrespective of whether it was right or wrong. So if you have no negative marking on your paper, please attempt every single question. Now we all know that content is king, but presentation and creating the right first impression go a long way. So let's begin with your science and social sciences paper. Now try answering the question in the first line itself of the answer directly. For example, a science question is list 3 characteristics of lungs which make it an efficient respiratory surface. Start your answer with the characteristics of lungs which make it an efficient respiratory surface are, for example, in a social science question, why did Gandhiji decide to call off the non-cooperation movement? Begin the answer with Gandhiji decided to call off the non-cooperation movement because. Now once we finish these first sentence, give the rest of the answer in points in an orderly fashion, preferably with the most important point right up in the beginning. When answering objective type questions, underline the answer or the main keyword, or you can put a box around it. You can also highlight, underline, draw boxes around important points. For example, a social science question is, name a political party in India that grew out of a movement. Answer, the political party in India that grew out of a movement is AIADMK, and put a box around AIADMK. Notice how we rephrased the question and wrote it as a complete statement. We didn't just put the answer right there, even though it was an objective type question. If the question is to distinguish between, then answer the question in columns. If it's a 2-mark question, write about 4 points and try giving examples. Always use a pencil and ruler for making the columns. If the question is for 5 marks, most often you would be expected to write about 5 points and always summarize in the last sentence. In science, draw diagrams if possible. Use a sharp pencil, draw neat diagrams and label them. Also remember to give a proper title to each diagram. In social sciences, if you have map work, please put the question number on the top left corner of the map and circle it. And now let's see paper presentation strategies for our math papers. The first thing you do when you get a math paper is write down all the information that's given in the question in the same order. The format for a math answer should be given, to find, formulae, proof format and the answer in units. In math, even if your answer is correct but you forget to write the units, that could be a costly mistake like centimeters or rupees. And if there are no specified units in the question, then write your answer as 12 units, for example. Always put the final answer in a box. If there are tables required to be drawn in the math paper, always draw them using a pencil and a ruler. Now for all subjects, when you get your exam answer sheet, draw a margin on the left hand side, because when you attach your supplementary sheets, something that you write in the corner on the left hand side of your paper actually won't be so clearly visible. And in the math paper, I would suggest you draw a margin on the right hand side as well. So you can use that for rough work as you're solving this question and you don't have to keep flipping back to the last page of your answer booklet. But remember to cross out the rough work when you finished answering that question. If there is a graph paper, make sure you write the question number on the graph paper and also the scale. Mark and label the axis. And when you're attaching this graph paper to your sheets, don't attach it right at the end because sometimes it's a single sheet that could tear off. Put it in the middle of your supplementary sheets and tie a thread, preferably keep it right next to the question itself. Now let's take a look at your English paper. If you have reading comprehension, always read the questions before you read the passage. That way you know what information you're looking for when you read the passage. In the writing section, if you have to write a letter format, for example, always pay specific attention to the word limit. Okay, now some general tips on paper presentation which would apply to all subjects. 1. Try to write as neatly and legibly as possible. Leave spaces, and if you cut something out, just use one line to cut it out. Don't make a whole spider web on it. Try to leave a line between two answers. And what I've noticed in the toppers' papers is that at the end of every question, they actually draw a line to tell the examiner that that answer is complete. Okay, one of the questions on your mind is, should I answer the questions in the same order in which they are presented to me in the exam paper? Now the answer is yes, you should. You can sort of do one section, let's say you do section A, and then if you don't want to do section B, you can go to section C if you want to. But when you start a section, answer all the questions in that in serial order. And if you don't know a particular answer, leave a few lines for it and go back to it later and fill it in. Another place where I found people losing marks were when they were giving extra information. Now there was this question which said, give advantages of an AC current. And I found that the student had beautifully written all the advantages, but in his excitement in the end went and said disadvantages of AC current 1, 2 and 3, and the examiner unfortunately did not give him full marks. Now another tip would be to write your paper in only black or blue ink and not green or red, because that's what examiners use. And don't use SMS or short form kind of language. Try to use as many scientific and technical terms as you can. Now when you're revising your paper at the end, remember we left 15 minutes to revise the paper. One of the things for you to do is go back to the question paper and tick off all the questions that you've answered to be sure that you haven't accidentally left something. And the second area where I find people make mistakes is they accidentally write the wrong question number. So always check that for your answer you've written the right question number next to it. And finally, if you're looking at tips on how to structure that long answer, we did a video some time back where we discussed a QAEE technique, and I'm going to drop a link to that video in the description box below. And meantime, wish you the very best for your exams coming up. Go right there confidently and do your very best, and subscribe to the channel. Press the bell icon right next to it. Give us a thumbs up if you like the work that we do, and happy watching.